in the leadoff spot tonight for JEDx 2019, please join Ace and I in welcoming the president and CEO of your Toronto Blue Jays, Mark Shapiro.
Oh, put me in cold. I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold. I'm ready to play today. Look at me.
Heard that song a few times. We'll work on getting Ace's mics fixed for the next time. It really is a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Anyone that ever saw me run when I was young would know that I've never batted leadoff ever and never will again. But hopefully I can help set the tone tonight. I was initially thinking, uniquely you. What makes me uniquely me that wouldn't put you into a slumber at the outset. And then I thought of the one question that I get uniformly every single time I'm either in a new Jewish community or speaking to a Jewish affiliated group. I get the question, Mark, the first hand up in the back, someone thinks they're going to be the first one to ever ask me, Mark, why do you pronounce your name wrong? That's the question I get. Why do you pronounce your name wrong? And then inevitably, they're insinuating, is it because you're trying to hide the fact you're Jewish? And then I'm thinking to myself, well, if I'm trying to hide the fact I'm Jewish, wouldn't it be like Smith or White? I could probably come up with something better than just pronouncing it Shapiro instead of Shapiro. So for those of you that don't know, there is a Mark Shapiro here who I met earlier. For those of you who don't know, there he is, the phonetic spelling, and I'm appealing to those of you that might think with a math brain, pie, Shapiro, or those of you that might think like me about food all the time, a culinary brain, it is Shapiro. And there is a tie to what that is, and it really dates back to Ellis Island and my family at the turn of the 20th century, fleeing religious persecution in Russia with the Russian Revolution bearing down. My grandfather, who I've never met because he died before I was born, the little boy with the violin right there, Mark Shapiro, although in that picture in Kiev it was Mark Shakwar, was about ready to come to Ellis Island, the United States, and some processor at Ellis Island. Have any of you been to Ellis Island? It's a pretty incredible place. Some processor for the families that they changed the name and that were settling only in Philadelphia. This is the curse of my name existence. Translated and said, okay, if you spell your name S-H-A-P-I-R-O, Mark, if you spell it like us, you're Shapiro, and if you spell it S-C-H-A-P-I-R-O, you're Shapiro. And that's it. That's the entire history of why I'm Shapiro instead of Shapiro. It is natural if you go to Philadelphia or Cherry Hill, New Jersey, any place else in the world, you're going to be told you pronounce your name wrong. And that's going to be a lifelong of doing that. So there is a Jewish tie to what makes me uniquely me, and it dates back to Ellis Island and my family and my grandfather. And I grew up in a Jewish household. I was bar mitzvahed, spent high holidays with my family. It was a regular part of my existence. But I think more than anything, as I think about what I want to share with you tonight, what Judaism has meant to me and continues to mean to me is really my identity, my values, who I am as a man, who I am as a leader, so much of those things. And one of those values is what I want to choose to talk about tonight because it's a limited amount of time. And that really is learning. And when I talked to Rabbi Raffi about my subject for my talk tonight, he did say that's an appropriate theme because Jews are known as people of the book. Continued education, learning is a value that probably all of you had instilled in you from your grandparents and your parents, and that it's something, as I talk to my two children, I'm talking about all the time. Jews are committed to lifelong learning and growth. So learning is kind of what I want to spend my time thinking about talking to you tonight, and that was really instilled in me from my early childhood with my dad. Jacqueline mentioned him when she introduced me tonight. My dad, who represented a lot of Hall of Famers, but in my eyes is a Hall of Famer. My dad never said, go to your room and study. He didn't say, go to the field and practice or go to the gym and work out. What my dad did say to me is, Mark, life is a series of creating options. And the better you do in school, then the better university you'll be able to attend. And the better you do in university, then the better job you'll be able to get. And the better you achieve at that job, the more opportunities you're going to have. So you want to have alternatives. Go and continue to learn and grow and develop to get better, and you'll have more opportunities and more options. My dad set that tone for me that learning was important, not for the sake of achieving grades, but for creating alternatives, for having choice, for creating a more fulfilling life. And really, it's played an integral role, because in every single role I've had, I've never thought about where I'm going, what the next job would be, what the next escalation of my career would be. I've only thought about, I'm going to exceed expectations and do a better job than my bosses expect from me. And if I do that and I do it well enough, things will take care of themselves. And one of those opportunities along the way was when I was working in Cleveland in my prior job, was a chance to work with someone who has Montreal ties. There's anyone here with Montreal ties? I thought there might be a few. And this person also had Expo ties. It's not Vladdy Jr. That's not what I'm going to talk about. It's a guy named Terry Francona, who played first base for the Expos in the 1980s, and then went on to be what will ultimately be a Hall of Fame manager. Now, I call Terry Tito, so when I slip in and out of that and I refer to him as Tito, please know that I'm talking about him. Terry's dad was a great player who was named Tito Francona, and all of his friends call him Tito. But what I want to talk about Terry in terms of learning, if you think about, he joined the Indians in 2012. And his first day with us is a day I'll never forget. Tito came into a conference room. There was a bunch of the front office sitting around a table. And at that point, this guy's won 2 world championships. I mean, everybody was kind of taken back. He's walking in with a huge resume, having accomplished months. He spent the last year on ESPN every Sunday night broadcasting those games. It would have been a very natural thing. And I think what we were all expecting, right? Hierarchical thinking. He's going to sit down at the table. He's going to tell us how we're going to get better. He's going to lay out this is the game plan. He sat down at the table and he looks at Alex Merberg, a 22-year-old intern, who had just started out of Ohio University, and he said, "Alex, tell me about, what you think about our lineup construction." And then he turned to Matt Foreman, a 24-year-old assistant in baseball operations, and he said, "Matt, tell me about what you think about how I can best leverage our bullpen. What do you think about bullpen leverage?" And in that moment, when we were expecting Terry to tell us what to do, he set a tone. He set a tone for the power of asking questions, the power of demonstrating that he could still learn, he could still get better. 2 world championships, Hall of Fame future, none of that mattered. And he demonstrated a scalable power that was for me to witness that at that moment was an incredible thing. It brought home to me, what learning could truly mean if adopted across an organization. And really, to me, it was the first building block of what I thought would later become a learning model. He demonstrated first humility. He didn't have to be humble. He could have walked in that room with a lot of pretense and a lot of attitude, and every single one of us would have thought he was entitled to act like that. He was entitled because of what he'd accomplished. He was entitled because of what his title was. He was entitled because of what other people thought about him. But instead, Tito walked in that room and he was humble. And even more than humble, he was open. He was open. He asked questions. He was open. He wasn't qualifying. He wasn't only open to me because my title was president. He wasn't only open to Chris Antonetti because his title was GM. He went to 2 of the youngest, most junior people in the room, modeling for all of us that we never know where that opportunity lies. We never know where the opportunity to learn, grow, develop comes from. It could come from any single person that we encounter in our life on a daily basis. And as I think about the whiteboard on my office every day, and this is directly from my office, Terry modeled humility, he modeled openness, and if you are truly humble, and if you are truly open, then you will learn. And if you're learning, you're continually improving. Your potential is limitless. And that, for me, became a learning model that I thought about. This is a personal philosophy for me. This is something that, I'm going to go out and think about how I live my life. But how can learning be brought to a professional sports franchise? How can learning become a competitive advantage? Well, I've had the opportunity or challenge or similarity to work in two situations, each of which had some very unique challenges. The first one was in Cleveland, where it was a smaller, aging city trying to reinvent itself from a manufacturing-based economy, lost 4 Fortune 500 companies, but it had its own set of challenges. And really in Cleveland, to perform, we had to outperform huge resource gaps and 28 teams. And Major League Baseball is largely a local market-driven revenue sharing system. And in Toronto, because of the exchange rate, we're one of 30 teams that operate with what really amounts to a 20%, 25% tax, because we pay most of our expenses in US dollars and take in most of our revenue in Canadian dollars. So that's a challenge. And then we happen to play in the AL East, which creates its own set of challenges, which means we have to slay two extreme resource organizations that have double our resources, not just in Major League payroll, but in everything we do. So overcoming challenges became a driving thought for me. How do we exceed expectations? You know, if we simply meet expectations, it's mediocrity, or in Cleveland, it's last place finishes. And that, for me, was not acceptable. That is not acceptable. We want to build a sustainable championship organization, an organization that has a chance to do great things. But to do that, in both of the situations I've been in, we have to exceed expectations. We have to do great things. We have to be not only a good place to work, but a great place to work. We not only have to do good work, we have to do great work. And we cannot have any weak links anywhere in our organization. And as we talked about transforming our culture here in Toronto, and we met as an organization, a group of people. It was some people who had been here a long time, like Andrew Tinish, Joe Sheehan, John Gibbons, and some people who were just joining the Blue Jays, like me and Ross Atkins and Angus Mugford, our director of high performance. And we talked about what anybody would talk about when they join an organization. What are our values? What's our vision? What's our mission? You know, how are we going to quantify kind of where we're going? What's going to be our compass? What are we going to turn back to when times are tough, like they are right now? And we sat down like anybody would do. I mean, I tell you, we came up with some great mission statements, none of which I can remember right now. They were great. They were like every corporate mission statement, right? Like these beautiful things you put in a binder and then no one remembers them, 10 years later. And I was sitting at my desk one morning and Ross called me and he goes, man, I feel really good about the work we did. Our values are great, clear, collaborate, learn, empower, achieve, and respect. Like everyone's going to remember those. But the mission statements, I can't, they're just not good. Why can't we just say get better every day? And I sat there for a minute and I said, we can. I said, damn, Ross, that's awesome. That's powerful. That's the best mission statement I've ever heard because it's universal. It applies to every single person in the organization. It applies to an intern doing advanced scouting. It applies to someone selling tickets. It applies to someone at a concession stand. It applies to the major league manager. It applies to a strength coach in Lansing or Dunedin. It applies to every single human being, a scout who's out alone in the middle of the Pacific Northwest scouting a game that no one's at, hoping he's going to dream and see some kid that 5 years from now might toe the rubber in a playoff game, that we might get a chance to draft that guy, that it might roll around and we might get a chance to draft that guy. But get better every day was really saying that we were going to model a learning culture at every single link of our organization. That was our directive, that was our strategy for outperforming expectations and overcoming huge odds. We were going to empower people, whether it be scouts, whether it be interns, whether it be every single person in our organization, to say, if we want to be great, if we want to overcome huge odds, if we want to win world championships and bring them to Canada again, that we're going to have no weak links at any aspect of our organization. We're going to have to do great work, exceptional work from every single person here, and we're going to depend on that. Every single person is going to not have to compare themselves to our competitors. We're going to have to be better than our competitors. We're going to have to internally frame our expectations and demand greatness of ourselves and each other. And we're going to have to learn. We're going to have to get better every day. There can't be a day that we don't wake up thinking about where's the opportunity to improve. Where's the opportunity to get better? How can we close the gap on our competitors today? So wherever you look in our building, in the offices, and that's in our Major League Clubhouse, Mejorarse Cada Dia in Spanish. We have it down in Dunedin in every single language of every player, Portuguese. We have it in Taiwanese. We have it in every language you could imagine of a player that's played for the Blue Jays. We have Get Better every day because it resonates with our players. It resonates with every single person that works in the organization. So I want you to think about, that opportunity, that it's not just a personal philosophy. It's not just something that can guide a group of people or an organization. It's something that can become the fabric of the culture of an organization. It's scalable competitive advantage. When learning is adopted not only as a personal philosophy, something where you think about, I'm going to listen to a podcast, I'm going to read a book, I'm going to learn from you and talk to you, but it's something that every one of us take as something that's a core belief, a core value, when it's adopted in the true Jewish meaning of the word, that we're going to continually think about learning, growing, developing, improving, and we're going to challenge all of those around us to do that, we can start to overcome huge odds and do great things. I want to finish today by reading you one more quote that is also on the whiteboard in my office. It's a quote by a guy named Barry Hatfield. Now, you're not going to know who Barry Hatfield is. I guarantee you not one of you know who Barry Hatfield is. But about 2 years ago, in a spring training entry meeting with our minor league coaches, we had a guy named Dave Hatfield, who still works with us, come in. Dave was one of the original coach development sports psychologists with the New Zealand All Blacks. New Zealand All Blacks are a rugby team that, with a tiny country, has to compete with the largest countries of the world, and they routinely beat them. So they outperform expectations. They overcome huge odds, and they do great things, and they have unbelievable amount of pride. And Dave's job, or Hatters as we call them, is to oversee the development of their coaches, not their players, but their coaches, something they spend an incredible amount of time with, something that we've tried to model and do. And Dave put a quote up, and he said, "My dad is a sheep farmer, and he's a mayor of a town of 400 people in New Zealand. And I want to tell you what he grew up saying to me. He grew up saying to me, you'll be the same person in 5 years as you are now, except for the books you read and the people you meet. Always be a learner, son." Think about that. As you go home tonight, think about, can you wake up tomorrow with the intent to learn? Can you seize an opportunity where no one else seizes an opportunity? Is there a person that you walk by every day and exchange thoughts and ideas with, but you're not truly listening to, that you can learn from? And I think if we all go forward with the commitment to be lifelong learners, with the commitment to maintain a beginner's mindset, with the understanding that expertise is our enemy. We are not experts. We need to be humble. We need to be open. Expertise will stop us from learning. We want to think about continual growth, continual learning. And we want to be around people that share that commitment to growth, that share that commitment to learning. We will be happier. We will be more fulfilled. We will be more at peace. And in my line of work, we will ultimately win more championships. Thank you very much. Thank you.